I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. I was sitting in Dr. Patel's waiting room when my phone rang. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils as I fumbled through my purse. My arthritis made simple tasks like this more difficult these days. When I finally found my phone, I saw my daughter's name on the screen, Zoe. "Hello, sweetheart," I sassy said, trying to mask the surprise in my voice. Zoe rarely called me in the middle of the day. "Mom, we're going tomorrow," she said, her voice cold and unfamiliar. "I've sold your beach house and your truck. We needed the money." I felt as if someone had punched me in the stomach. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What did you say?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "Austin and I are going to Europe. We've got this amazing business opportunity that's going to make us rich. We sold your beach house and Dad's old truck to fund it." "But Zoe, that house, that truck, they're mine. You had no right." "We've already transferred your share to your account. It's not much, but it'll help you get by for a few months. Gotta go. Bye." The line went dead, just like that. 45 years of raising her, sacrificing for her, loving her unconditionally. And she discarded me like yesterday's newspaper. The woman sitting across from me, probably in her 30s, looked up from her magazine with concern in her eyes. "Are you okay?" "You've gone white as a sheet." I nodded automatically, but I wasn't okay. My daughter had just sold my beloved beach house, the sanctuary Brian and I had saved for years to buy, and his cherished Ford pickup truck. The last tangible things I had of my husband. Yet strangely, I didn't cry. Instead, I took a deep breath and felt a strange calm settle over me, because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Nicole Bailey. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew who my daughter was. "Mrs. Bailey," the nurse called my name. "The doctor will see you now." I rose slowly, gathering my purse and my dignity. As I followed the nurse down the corridor, my mind drifted back 6 months, to the morning that had changed everything. Brian and I had been married for 45 years, every morning for those 4.5 decades. We shared breakfast at our kitchen table. That fateful morning, like all the others, he had served me coffee with cream and toast, as always. He had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. The heart attack was massive and immediate. One moment he was smiling at me across our worn kitchen table. The next, he was gone. Since then, Zoe had been more present in my life, or so I had believed. She visited 3 times a week, helped with the funeral arrangements, drove me to the grocery store. She even suggested I see a doctor for a checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with that smile I thought was love, but now understood was merely calculation. The beach house had been our sanctuary for years. Brian and I bought it when Zoe was 15 after years of hard work and sacrifice. Every summer we'd go there, building memories, celebrating birthdays and Christmases. Zoe would bring her boyfriends and later her husband Austin. I would cook for everyone, clean, and do the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And the truck, that old Ford pickup that Brian had cared for like his own child. He washed it every Sunday, changed the oil religiously, and always parked it in the same spot under the shade of the maple tree. Zoe knew what that truck meant to me. It was the last piece of him I had left. His scent still lingered on the seats. Dr. Patel's examination was brief and impersonal. She told me I was in good health for my age, that I just needed to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about the envelope. 3 days before he died, Brian had handed me a manila envelope. "Nicole," he'd said, using my full name as he always did when something was important. "Put this in the drawer of your dresser. If something happens to me, open it when you feel ready. Not before." I had tucked it away without much thought. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I had simply forgotten about it. But now, it was waiting for me at home. As I waited for the bus, I no longer had a car. According to Zoe, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. My daughter thought she had left me with nothing, but I had a feeling that wasn't the case at all. Brian had always been a man who planned ahead. The bus ride home was a blur of faces and buildings. I sat by the window, watching the city pass by. People rushing everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had mine too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom. I opened the dresser drawer, and there it was, the manila envelope, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Brian had written my name on the front in his neat, precise handwriting. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. It was getting dark outside, and the house was filling with shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a birthday gift. What I found inside took my breath away. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Brian. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar script. My dear Nicole, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. You remember how 30 years ago, my business partner Jack Reynolds tried to defraud me of our savings. After that incident, I made a decision to protect our family in a way that wouldn't put us at risk again. Over the years, I've quietly invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Zoe and Austin live. We also have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are wealthy, my love. You always were rich in heart. But now you are on paper, too. I kept this secret because I didn't want money to change us. I didn't want Zoe to grow up entitled, thinking she didn't need to work for what she wanted. Most importantly, I didn't want you to worry about managing all this. James Sullivan has been my attorney for 20 years. He has all the details and will help you take control of everything when you're ready. His number is at the bottom of this letter. I'm sorry for keeping secrets from you. I hope you understand it was done out of love, not distrust. Forever yours. Brian. My hands trembled as I looked through the documents. There were deeds to houses in different neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small motel on the coast, and indeed, the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Brian had been the silent owner for the past 10 years, but had put everything in the name of a company I didn't know existed, Green Bay Investments. And according to the papers, I was the sole heir of that company. There were also bank statements for accounts I never knew existed, with numbers that seemed unreal. Brian had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently, he had also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied in silence, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Brian explained that he had kept it all a secret because he didn't want me to worry about money or for Zoe to know about our real financial situation. You know our daughter, Nicole, if she knew we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have. What irony. Our daughter had left us thinking we had nothing, when in reality, we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house, touching the old furniture and the knickknacks Zoe had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall, especially the one where she was 5 years old, sitting on Brian's lap and laughing. Where did that sweet little girl go? When did she become so cold, so calculating? The next day, early in the morning, the phone rang. It was Zoe again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to be wary of those shifts in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you we already transferred the money from the house and the truck. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller. My share? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, Mom, we obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Europe. Austin has an incredible business opportunity over there. 30% of my own things. How generous. I see. And when do you leave? Honey, This afternoon, our bags are already packed. We'll be gone for at least 6 months, maybe more if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom, when we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment, something that fits your needs. Fits my needs, as if she knew what my needs were. Okay, Zoe, have a safe trip. Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much. And she hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Brian died. The situation was so absurd. It was comical. My daughter had robbed me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with unbearable condescension, and all to fund a European adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the ease with which she had discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifice, of unconditional love. And she had erased me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. That was what truly hurt. I checked my bank account online. Sure enough, they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but to me was a mockery. They had sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, likely because they needed the cash quickly. And they had sold Brian's truck for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I watched Zoe and Austin load their suitcases into a cab. He was carrying 2 huge suitcases. She had a very expensive-looking carry-on bag. I watched them laugh, kiss, and make plans. They looked like 2 teenagers excited for an adventure. They never looked toward my window. Never said goodbye. When the cab drove away, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Brian's documents spread out on the table. I had to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, and get back everything they had taken. But something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational way. I called James Sullivan, the lawyer who had handled Brian's affairs. He had been at the funeral, had given me his condolences, and had told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Bailey, it's good to hear from you. How are you? I'm doing well. Mr. Sullivan, I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Brian that I don't quite understand. Of course, you can come to my office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'll be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Brian. He was sitting in his favorite chair reading the newspaper, just as he did every Sunday. And when he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it wasn't the sadness I had felt for so many months either. It was something like determination. For the first time since Brian's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Zoe expected. The next morning, I got dressed with more care than usual. I put on my burgundy dress, the one Brian always said made me look elegant. I fixed my hair and put on a little makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong woman. Mr. Sullivan's office was downtown, in an old but elegant building with marble floors and large windows. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, led me to his office immediately. He greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. Mrs. Bailey, this is much more than I imagined. Brian was a very smart man. Look, I said, pointing to the papers. According to these documents, I am the owner of... I know, Mrs. Bailey. I've been managing these investments for years. Brian and I set up everything very carefully. What I need to know is what I can legally do. Mr. Sullivan explained that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, and that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I had already suspected: the sale of the beach house was illegal because Zoe had no right to sell it. We can get the house back immediately, Mrs. Bailey, and we can also proceed with legal action against your daughter for fraud. No, Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to proceed with legal action. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain a secret for now. Can you help me? He looked at me with curiosity, but nodded. Of course. You are my client. What do you need? I need you to discreetly get the beach house back. Do what is necessary to nullify that fraudulent sale. And I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives. I understand. It will be a process that takes a few weeks, but it's completely feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Sullivan, I need no one to know I am behind all of this. At least for now. When I left his office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the downtown streets watching people, buildings, the life that was going on as normal. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow who had been abandoned by her daughter. But in secret, I was a wealthy woman quietly orchestrating the recovery of my assets. Mr. Sullivan worked efficiently, and every few days he would call me with updates on the progress of the legal proceedings. I decided to stay in my house for the time being. It was mine, after all. Although Zoe probably expected me to move into a single room somewhere, every morning I would wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Brian and I had shared so many years, and then go for a walk in the neighborhood. The neighbors would greet me with that mix of pity and curiosity they reserved for recent widows. Martha Wilson, my lifelong neighbor and closest friend, came up to me one afternoon while I was watering the plants in the front yard. "Nicole, dear, is it true that Zoe went to Europe and left you all alone?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. "Yes, Martha. She went with Austin. They have business plans over there. And how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Brian didn't leave much money. If you only knew," I thought. "Don't worry, Martha. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring you some food. Help you with groceries? You're very kind, but I'm fine, really." Martha looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the funeral, compassion mixed with a little relief that it wasn't her tragedy. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything?" These conversations were constantly repeated: the butcher, the baker, the lady at the corner store. Everyone spoke to me with that soft tone they use with the unfortunate, and I would nod, smile, and thank them for their concern. But inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. Mr. Sullivan called me one Wednesday morning with unexpected news. "Mrs. Bailey, I've been doing some digging into your son-in-law's background. There's something you should know." "What is it?" "Austin Perry has a history we weren't aware of. He's been involved in several investment schemes that border on fraud. He's never been convicted, but he's been investigated twice for deceiving wealthy older women." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean?" "He seems to target women in their 60s and 70s who have substantial assets. He gains their trust, then convinces them to invest in his business opportunities. The money disappears, and so does he." "Are you saying my daughter married a con man?" "I'm saying your son-in-law has a very questionable past. I don't know if your daughter is aware of it." I sat down, trying to process this information. Was Zoe a victim or an accomplice? Had Austin been manipulating her? Or were they working together to take advantage of me? "There's more," Mr. Sullivan continued. "The business opportunity in Europe, it doesn't exist. At least, not the way they described it to you. Austin has been making inquiries about selling property in Spain, but nothing about starting a business. It appears they're using your money to buy a villa on the coast. A vacation home. They sold my beach house to buy themselves a vacation home in Spain. That's what it looks like. And Mrs. Bailey, the debts. Austin has a lot of debts. He's been taking out loans using the apartment they live in as collateral. But the apartment is in my building. He doesn't own it." "Exactly. That's going to be a problem for him very soon. The banks are starting to figure out that he doesn't have the right to use that property as collateral." I thanked Mr. Sullivan for the information and hung up. I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking about what I had just learned. My son-in-law was a con man with a history of defrauding older women. Had he seen me as his next victim? Had Zoe fallen for his charm? Or was she knowingly part of his scheme? I remembered how quickly Zoe had changed after meeting Austin 4 years ago. She had always been career-focused, ambitious, working hard at her marketing job. Then suddenly, She was talking about quick money, investments, living the high life. She started wearing designer clothes, took expensive vacations, looked down on the simple life Brian and I had led. Was that Austin's influence? Or had that materialistic streak always been in her? Just waiting for the right trigger that night. I took out old photo albums and looked at pictures of Zoe growing up. The little girl in pigtails who wanted to save all the stray animals in the neighborhood. The teenager who volunteered at the homeless shelter every Thanksgiving. The college graduate who promised to make us proud. Where was that person now? I needed to know if my daughter was a victim or a willing participant in Austin's schemes. That would determine my next steps. Mr. Sullivan called again 2 days later. Mrs. Bailey, I have good news. I was able to nullify the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without any problems. The house is yours again. Excellent. Mr. Sullivan, and the building where Zoe lives. That one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need to make some administrative changes so that you have direct control. That should take another 2 weeks. Perfect. Keep me informed. After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Zoe. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't heard anything from her. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she got the money she needed. But I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Brian and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered it, small, painted cream-colored, with a porch overlooking the ocean. The new owners, or rather, the people who had briefly thought they were the owners, had put some potted plants on the steps. But other than that, everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and looked at it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Zoe was little, running on the beach and building sandcastles. Brian grilling fish on the barbecue while I made salads in the kitchen. Zoe bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Austin. All those happy moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older gentleman came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached with curiosity. "Are you okay, ma'am? You've been sitting there for quite a while." "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners. The Baileys. I'm afraid we've had some bad news about the house. Apparently, the sale wasn't legal. The daughter didn't have the right to sell it. We've had to give it back." "What did she tell you about the owner?" I couldn't help asking. "She said her elderly mother was very sick and needed to sell fast to pay for medical care. We thought it was a good deal, helping someone in need. But it turns out it was all a lie." My heart sank. Zoe had not only sold my house illegally, she had invented a story about me being sick to justify the quick sale. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "I hope you didn't lose any money." "No, fortunately, everything was sorted out legally. But it's a shame. We really liked this house." I left with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Zoe had lied about me. She had made up a story about my illness, used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her. I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Sullivan again. "Mr. Sullivan, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Brian's truck back, too. That will be more difficult. Mrs. Bailey, the truck was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it. How is that possible? Apparently, you signed that power of attorney a few months ago, after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was the moment Zoe had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance arrangements. I had been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand, Mr. Sullivan. Is there any way to get it back?" "We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion." "Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew. I would go out to buy necessities, talk to the neighbors, and keep up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I would study Brian's documents, talk to Mr. Sullivan, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Brian had been much smarter than I thought. Every one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Zoe lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also confirmed that Austin had a lot of debt. He had taken out loans using the apartment as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he was going to be in serious trouble. Mr. Sullivan called me one Friday with important news. "Mrs. Bailey, we finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also got Brian's truck back. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine. And when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation." Excellent work. Mr. Sullivan, now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Bailey, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "No. I want you to give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Martha came running to my house with fresh neighborhood gossip. "Nicole, did you know that Austin is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral. But it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" I feigned surprise. "Yes, and it seems Zoe didn't know anything about it. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess." "What a complicated situation." "Yes. And the worst part is, apparently Austin lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here." Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Zoe had trusted Austin, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Brian used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived full lives watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there, watching his plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me even after your death." The next day, Mr. Sullivan called me early. "Mrs. Bailey, I have some news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone." "Alone?" I asked, surprised despite myself. "Yes, apparently Austin stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big fight." "I see. Did you send the letter?" "I'm going to send it today. She should receive it tomorrow." I hung up the phone and stood there in the kitchen, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Zoe was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Martha, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. "Nicole, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go into the building with one suitcase, but she looked terrible pale, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone. Completely alone. And something strange. Nicole, when the doorman asked her for the keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy." Interesting. Austin had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Zoe had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Sullivan called me that same afternoon. "Mrs. Bailey, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it in person." "Perfect. How long did we give her?" 30 days to vacate the apartment, as per legal standards. "But Mrs. Bailey, are you sure you want to do this? She is your daughter, after all." "Mr. Sullivan, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences." "I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications." "I have considered them. Mr. Sullivan. All of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Zoe's face when she read the letter, the initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, as if she had been waiting for the exact moment I would be awake. The phone rang at 8 Huziers in the morning. It was Zoe, and her voice sounded desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Europe? I kept my voice neutral. Mom, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice. How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called... Wait, let me find the letter. Green Bay Investments. Do you know this company? Brian had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey, I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter is legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Austin left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman. And now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Austin had abandoned her, probably when the money ran out or when he realized the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Zoe. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Zoe arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see: a poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Zoe arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. Mom, she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I had read Brian's documents weeks ago. Zoe looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child and came to tell me about her school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey. No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things. And now, her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Austin? He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure. All the debts, yes, Mom, so many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She started to cry, real tears of genuine desperation. And for a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office, the ease with which she had discarded me, the way she had talked to me as if I were a burden. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I don't have money for a lawyer. Mom, we spent all the money in Europe. Austin took what little was left when he ran off with that woman. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live. There was the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, honey. This will always be your home. Zoe looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom. After everything that happened, you are my daughter, Zoe. That will never change. She got up and hugged me. It was a desperate hug from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they could find. I hugged her back, too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace. Strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are. Zoe left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the poor abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, and believe she had found a refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called James Sullivan to update him on the situation. She's moving in with me tomorrow, I said quietly, making sure Zoe couldn't hear me from the guest bedroom. She's completely broken. And you're okay with this, Mrs. Bailey, after what she did to you? I paused, considering his question. Yes, she's still my daughter, but this doesn't change our plan. I want her to learn a real lesson. I understand. I'll continue with the legal proceedings regarding Austin's debts. The banks are starting to ask serious questions. Good. Keep me informed. When I hung up, I walked through the living room and noticed light coming from under the guest room door. Zoe was still awake, probably worrying about her future. Part of me wanted to go in and comfort her, tell her everything would be all right, that she was richer than she knew. The other part reminded me why we were here in the first place. The next morning, Zoe moved in with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Her designer clothes and expensive accessories looked strangely out of place in the modest bedroom she'd grown up in. I couldn't take much, she explained, placing a framed photo of her and Austin on the nightstand. Most of our stuff was still in storage when we left for Europe. She paused, looking at the photo, then turned it face down. I won't be needing this anymore. As I helped her unpack, I noticed how little she had that wasn't flashy or impractical designer dresses, high heels, jewelry, but barely any everyday clothes suitable for job hunting. Mom, I found this in the apartment, she said suddenly, showing me a manila envelope. It was among Austin's things. It has your name on it. My heart raced when I saw it. It was another one of Brian's envelopes, but different from the one I'd found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer, with my name written in the same familiar handwriting. My name. How strange. Yes, look. She showed me the envelope. Maybe Austin found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to you. It's possible, I said as he said, maintaining my composure. Can I see it? I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter read Nicole. If you're reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank, downtown branch. The number is 247. There is something there that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Brian. Zoe read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box. Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. I didn't either, I lied. Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Mom, maybe there's something important in there. Documents or, I don't know, maybe something valuable that can help us. The desperation in her voice was palpable. Zoe was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before I showed her the complete reality. "Okay," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Zoe and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. "Austin lied about everything. Mom," she said, pushing food around her plate. "Not just the business, but the debts, too. I thought he only owed a little bit of money, but it turns out he owes over $200,000. And the worst part is, he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents to handle the banking for our joint account. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know?" "I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say that since we were married. I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Austin is now. He just disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if he vanished." Perfect. Austin had run away like the rat he had always been, leaving Zoe to face the consequences of her actions alone. In a way, he had done me a favor. Now, my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when she abandoned me betrayal by someone she had completely trusted. "I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know things were so bad." "I didn't either. Mom, I thought Austin loved me, that we were going to build something together. But it turns out I was just an easy way for him to get money and documents." Zoe started to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize who he really was? It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn her that Austin never seemed trustworthy. But that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable mother. Love can be blinding sometimes, honey. Don't blame yourself. "But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours, too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your truck, your things, and all to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're two poor women trying to survive because of me. It's in the past, Zoe." "No, it's not. Now we're both in trouble because of my mistakes. You lost everything Dad left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive." If she only knew. I thought that at this very moment I had more money than she could possibly imagine, that I was the owner of the building where she lived, that I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next morning, we went to First National Bank. Zoe was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, and opened box number 247. Inside were jewels, many jewels, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Brian's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Zoe gasped. "Mom, this must be worth a fortune." "You think so?" "Yes. Look at this emerald, this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here. According to Brian's letter, the jewels were worth approximately $200,000. It was a significant amount, but nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank." "What do we do with this, Mom?" "I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But, Mom, we could sell some of the pieces. With this money, you could get your beach house back, and I could pay off some of Austin's debts." There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Zoe's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Austin had created. She hadn't learned a thing yet. "Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Austin's debts? What other option do I have? Mom, if I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have. And technically, I don't own anything. Everything was in Austin's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, You won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer is going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Zoe spread them out on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. The pearl necklace that Brian had given me on our 20th anniversary, $15,000. The ruby earrings that had belonged to his grandmother, $22,000. The diamond bracelet from our 30th anniversary, $30,000. Each piece had a story, a memory attached to it. But to Zoe, they were just assets to liquidate. That evening, she called several jewelers, making appointments to get appraisals. She was efficient, determined. This was a side of my daughter I hadn't seen in years, the pragmatic problem solver who had excelled in college before meeting Austin. As I watched her make these calls, I felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride in seeing her take charge of her situation, and sadness at the circumstances that had brought her to this point. That night, I called Mr. Sullivan to update him on our discovery. Brian thought of everything, he said, not sounding surprised. He always wanted to make sure you and Zoe would be taken care of. The question is, should I let her sell these jewels to pay off Austin's debts? Legally, she has every right to sell what's been found in a safety deposit box opened with your key. But ethically, that's up to you, Mrs. Bailey. I'm trying to teach her a lesson, not punish her forever. I just want her to understand what she did wrong. And do you think she's learning? I'm not sure yet. She seems genuinely remorseful about how she treated me. But she's still focused on fixing Austin's messes rather than taking responsibility for her own actions. Give her time. This kind of learning doesn't happen overnight. I knew he was right. The transformation I was hoping for wouldn't come in a day or even a week. It would be a gradual process, with steps forward and backward. Mr. Sullivan, have you found anything more about Austin? Actually, yes. Our investigators traced him to Paris. He's still there, living with that young woman Zoe mentioned. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to arrange a marriage of convenience with her. She's French, and it seems he's trying to get residency through her, to avoid coming back and facing his debts. Exactly. But here's something that might help your daughter. We found evidence that he deliberately falsified documents with her signature. Emails, notes, even a recording where he discusses his plan with someone. With this evidence, we can make a strong case that Zoe was a victim of fraud, not a willing participant. That would get her off the hook for his debts. Not all of them, but a significant portion, the ones where we can prove fraud. It would make her situation much more manageable. This was valuable information, but I decided not to share it with Zoe yet. She needed to go a little further in her journey of self-discovery before I revealed all my cards. Keep gathering evidence, Mr. Sullivan, but don't take any legal action yet. I'll let you know when the time is right. Mom, I got $180,000 for the jewels, Zoe told me one afternoon a week later, counting the bills on the kitchen table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll foreclose on everything. How ironic the situation was. Zoe was worried about losing assets that weren't even hers, paying the debts of a man who had abandoned her with money from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Then I'll tackle the credit card debts with the highest interest rates. Zoe had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. I could see it in her eyes, the constant worry, the fear of the future. I'm also going to start looking for a job tomorrow, she said, organizing the bills into neat stacks. I can't keep living off you. Mom, take your time, honey. You've been through a lot. No, I need to do this. I need to stand on my own 2 feet again. The next day, Zoe dressed in her most conservative outfit, a navy blue suit that looked expensive but understated, and went out to job interviews. She came back that evening looking defeated. "How did it go?" I asked as she dropped her purse on the kitchen counter. "Not good. I went to 3 interviews. 2 of them told me they can't hire me because of my pending legal issues. The 3rd one offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night." "Cleaning offices. But you have a marketing degree. You were a brand manager." That was before Austin ruined my credit and my reputation. "Mom, do you know what it feels like to sit across from someone who's looking at your resume with interest and then seeing their expression change when they run a background check? It's humiliating. Are you going to take the cleaning job? I don't have a choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing, and I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day." Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for over 15 years, preparing to clean offices at night, broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. "Are you sure you can handle so much physical work?" "I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you. Mom, it's bad enough that you're letting me live here for free." "This is your home, Zoe." "No, Mom, this is your home, and I'm here because of your generosity. But I'm not going to take advantage of it forever." The next evening, Zoe left for her first shift at the cleaning company. She wore a simple uniform and carried a small bag with her dinner. She looked both nervous and determined. "I'll be back around midnight," she said as she left. "Don't wait up." But of course, I did wait up. I couldn't help worrying about her out there in the night, doing a job she was completely unprepared for. She came home just after midnight, looking exhausted, but somehow different. There was a new expression on her face, something like quiet pride. "How was it?" I asked, offering her a cup of tea. "Hard," she admitted, sinking into a kitchen chair. "My back hurts, my hands are raw, and I've never been so tired. But it wasn't as bad as I thought. The other ladies who worked there helped me a lot." "Other ladies?" "Yes, most of them are older, in their 50s and 60s. One of them, Gloria Johnson, has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She took me under her wing tonight, showed me how to clean more efficiently, how to pace myself. That was kind of her. She's amazing. Mom, she started cleaning after her husband left her with 3 small children. She said it wasn't the job she dreamed of, but it gave her independence and dignity." Zoe sipped her tea thoughtfully. "She said something that made me think a lot. She told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job, the ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have." She asked me which group I was in. "And what did you tell her?" I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a loving family, a good education, a stable home, and I ruined it all by following a worthless man. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you 1 step ahead of most people." Zoe smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "She's right. I know exactly how I ended up here, and that means I can find my way back." I nodded, surprised and moved by this insight. Perhaps this Gloria Johnson would be a better teacher for Zoe than I could ever be. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Zoe would look for regular jobs during the day, often facing rejection because of her complicated financial and legal situation. Then at night, she would go clean offices with Gloria and the other women. She would come home tired, but increasingly at peace. The physical work was exhausting, but it was honest. She was earning every dollar with the sweat of her brow, and that seemed to be healing something in her. One evening, she came home earlier than usual, looking excited. "Mom, Gloria asked me to help her with something special this weekend. Her daughter is getting married, and Gloria is organizing a small reception at her house. She asked if I would help her prepare the food and decorate the place." "That sounds nice. Are you going to do it?" "Yes, I want to. Gloria has been so kind to me, and she's paying me a little extra, which I really need. But what, honey?" "I feel strange about it. 3 months ago, I was planning to attend a wedding in Europe, wearing designer clothes, staying at a 5-star hotel, and now I'm excited about helping to cater a small backyard wedding for extra cash. Is that a bad thing?" Zoe thought for a moment. No, it's not. That's what's strange. I should feel humiliated, but instead I feel useful, like I'm doing something real for once. I smiled, recognizing a small but significant shift in her perspective. The old Zoe would have found such work beneath her. This new Zoe was beginning to find value in things beyond status and luxury. The next day, Martha came by for coffee, as she often did. Zoe was out job hunting, so Martha and I sat in the kitchen alone. "Nicole, I have to ask you something," she said, stirring sugar into her cup. "Did you know Zoe was going to come back in these conditions?" "What do you mean?" "Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Austin was. And now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning job, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Martha." "Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Zoe these days, and she looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important." Martha had always been very perceptive. "What do you think she learned?" "I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally. Maybe, Nicole, can I tell you something? When Zoe left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter." "Martha, yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated. If Martha only knew the complete truth that I had the power to solve all of Zoe's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the full lesson." "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" Martha considered the question carefully. "I think you're doing what a good mother would do, but I also think Zoe needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you." "What do you mean?" "I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you." Martha had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Zoe to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. "And how do you think that can happen?" "I think it's already happening. I've seen her these past few days. Nicole, the way she talks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now she's a grown woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you." That night when Zoe returned from her job, I saw her arrive tired, but with a new dignity. She had earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. "How was your day?" I asked as she washed her hands at the kitchen sink. "Hard, but not as bad as yesterday. I'm starting to get used to it." She sat down at the table, and I noticed she was holding something in her hand, a small paycheck. "My first week's pay," she said, looking at it with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "It's not much, but I earned every penny of it. I'm going to use it to start paying off the smallest debt. It's just a drop in the ocean, but it's something." I watched her carefully fold the check and put it in her wallet. This small gesture said more than any words could about how much she had changed. "Mom, I want you to know something," she said suddenly, looking up at me with clear eyes. "These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart." "Zoe, no, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey, but I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes." Zoe got up and hugged me. A real hug, not the desperate embrace of someone drowning, but the warm hug of a daughter who truly loves her mother. That night, I called Mr. Sullivan. "Mrs. Bailey, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Austin's debts. It was time. After weeks of watching Zoe struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone quietly watching over her. Mr. Sullivan, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth. Martha was right. Zoe was changing. Each day I saw small signs of it, the way she made coffee for both of us in the morning, how she insisted on doing the grocery shopping with her meager earnings, the genuine interest she showed in my day. But the most profound change came unexpectedly one evening when she returned from work earlier than usual. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said as she entered the kitchen, still in her cleaning uniform. "Something happened today." "What is it, honey?" I asked, noticing her serious expression. "You know Diane, the young woman who cleans with us. She has a 4-year-old son, and she's been struggling to pay for daycare. Today she was crying in the break room because she couldn't afford this month's payment. And if she doesn't pay by Friday, she'll lose her spot." "That's terrible." "I gave her $200 from the jewelry money. I know I should be using it to pay off my debts, but she needed it more than the bank does right now." I looked at my daughter in surprise. Just a month ago, Zoe wouldn't have noticed someone like Diane, let alone given her money when she herself was drowning in debt. "You did a good thing," I said softly. "Gloria says there's a dignity in helping others when you yourself are struggling, that it reminds us we all have something to give, no matter how little we have." Zoe sat down at the table, looking thoughtful. "You know what's strange? Mom, I feel better about giving Diane that $200 than I ever felt spending thousands on designer clothes or fancy restaurants." I nodded, seeing a profound shift in my daughter's values. This wasn't just remorse or a temporary humbling. This was a fundamental change in how she saw the world and her place in it. "Gloria asked me if I'd be interested in volunteering at a women's shelter on Saturdays. Many of the women there have been financially abused by their partners' men who controlled all the money, ran up debts in their names, left them with nothing. Just like Austin did to me." "What did you tell her?" "I said yes. I can't offer much, but I can share my experience. Maybe help them avoid some of the mistakes I made." I watched my daughter as she spoke, her eyes bright with purpose. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when Zoe stopped focusing solely on her own problems and began looking outward, seeing how she could help others despite her own difficulties. "I'm proud of you, Zoe." She looked up, surprised. "Proud, but Mom, I've ruined everything. I've lost our beach house, Dad's truck, all our savings. I'm a cleaning lady living in your spare room at 45. What's there to be proud of?" "I'm proud of who you're becoming, not what you've lost." She smiled, a small, tentative smile, but genuine. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The next morning, Mr. Sullivan called with the final arrangements for our meeting. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. in my office. I have all the documents ready. Are you certain this is what you want to do?" "Absolutely. It's time." "Very well. I'll see you both tomorrow." I hung up and went to find Zoe, who was cleaning the bathroom, a chore she would have found beneath her just months ago. "Zoe, I've made an appointment with a lawyer for tomorrow morning. He might be able to help with your situation." She looked up, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. "A lawyer, Mom? I told you I can't afford legal fees." "This is a consultation. It won't cost anything." "Really, what kind of lawyer does free consultations for people drowning in debt?" "He's an old friend of your father's. Just trust me." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I'll go anywhere. Try anything at this point." That evening, Zoe sat at the kitchen table, going through her finances. She had created a detailed spreadsheet of all her debts, payments, and the little income she was making. It was a depressing document, showing years of payments ahead with her current resources. "Even if I work 7 days a week cleaning, it would take me at least 5 years to pay everything off," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. "And that's if no emergencies come up, if I stay healthy, if nothing goes wrong. One day at a time, honey." "I know. I can't believe I let Austin do this to us. I knew something wasn't right." But I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in the fantasy he was selling. We all make mistakes, but my mistakes hurt you. Mom, you lost everything because of me. I reached across the table and took her hand. We'll talk about all of this tomorrow, after the meeting with the lawyer. That night, I lay awake thinking about the next day. How would Zoe react to the truth? Would she be angry that I had let her struggle when I could have fixed everything immediately? Would she understand why I had done it? Would it change the lessons she had learned? It was a risk, but one I had to take. The time for secrets was over. The next morning, Zoe dressed in her best remaining outfit, a simple black dress that had once been part of her expensive professional wardrobe. She looked nervous. Do I look okay? Mom, I want to make a good impression on this lawyer. You look fine, honey. We took the bus downtown, to the same elegant building where I had first met with Mr. Sullivan weeks ago. Zoe looked around the marble lobby with apprehension. Mom, are you sure this lawyer is going to help us? This looks like a very expensive firm. Just trust me. When we entered Mr. Sullivan's office, he greeted us professionally but warmly. Mrs. Bailey, Miss Green, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us, Zoe replied, shifting nervously in her seat. Although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees. That's exactly what we're going to talk about, Mr. Sullivan said, exchanging a look with me. But first, I need you to review these documents. Mr. Sullivan handed Zoe a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise to shock. I don't understand, she said, looking up at Mr. Sullivan, then at me. These documents say that Austin forged my signature, that there is evidence of fraud, that I am not responsible for the debts. That's right, Mr. Sullivan replied calmly. We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this. Mr. Sullivan looked at me. It was my moment. Zoe, there's something I need to tell you. What, Mom? I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. Your father left me more than you knew. Much more. What do you mean, Mr. Sullivan? Show her the other documents. Mr. Sullivan took out a second folder and handed it to Zoe. This time, the documents were the property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire fortune Brian had built in secret. Zoe read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, comprehension. Mom, this says you are the owner of the building where I lived. Yes, and that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments. Yes, this means that when I sold the beach house, it was your house, and the sale was fraudulent. I already got it back. Zoe stared at the papers, trying to process the information. How long have you known this? Since the day you called me from the doctor's office. You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help. Yes. You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night. Yes. There was a long, tense silence. Zoe closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me? This was the question I had been waiting for weeks. Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way. What though? You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity. It was love. It was trust. Zoe started to cry. But they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. I abandoned you when you needed me most. Yes. I treated you like garbage. Yes. And you saved me anyway. Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself. Mr. Sullivan discreetly intervened. Miss Green, Your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Austin's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems." Zoe looked stunned. "All of them, even the ones where he used my signature, all of them?" Mr. Sullivan confirmed. "The evidence we gathered was conclusive. Austin Perry committed fraud, and you were his victim." Zoe turned back to me. "And the cleaning job I got. You can quit if you want," I sadly said. "But I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn." Zoe wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. "Do you forgive me?" "Mom, I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself?" "I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes. Zoe, the important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes." Mr. Sullivan left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Zoe and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. "Mom, I want you to know something," she finally said, her voice steady. "Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson." "What lesson?" "That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you, that no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change. Zoe, I know, but I also know that I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words." We left Mr. Sullivan's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Zoe expected. Even though she now knew I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. "Mom, I need to finish what I started," she told me one afternoon as she was getting ready for work. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened. Are you sure you don't have to punish yourself forever?" "It's not a punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now." I watched her put on her work uniform, something unthinkable a few months ago when she lived in the luxury condo with Austin. But there was something different in her posture, in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had arrived crying at my door. She was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Martha came to visit me that afternoon, as she had done every few days since Zoe had returned. "Nicole, there are some very strange rumors going around the neighborhood," she said, sipping her tea. "What kind of rumors? People are saying that you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Zoe leaving a very elegant lawyer's office downtown, and then they saw her paying off all her debts at the bank. People talk a lot. Martha?" "Yes, but they're also saying you got your beach house back, and that somehow you managed to solve all of Zoe's legal problems. That costs a lot of money. Nicole?" Martha knew me too well to fool her for long. "What do you want to know exactly?" "I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about her situation." I poured myself a cup of tea and sat across from her. It was time to be honest with someone else. "Brian left me more than anyone knew. Much more." "How much more?" "Enough so that Zoe and I never have to worry about money again." Martha was silent for a moment, processing the information. "And why did you pretend to be poor all these months?" "Because I needed Zoe to learn something she couldn't learn any other way." I told her the whole story: Zoe's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks of watching her hit rock bottom, and finally the revelation in Mr. Sullivan's office. "Nicole, that is brilliant and terrible at the same time." "Terrible." "Yes, because you let your own daughter suffer when you could have helped her immediately. But also brilliant because I understand why you did it. You wanted her to learn the value of the things she had lost." "Exactly. If I had simply given her money to solve her problems, she would have learned that there's always someone who will rescue her from the consequences of her bad decisions. But Nicole, didn't it hurt you to see her suffer? Every day. Every night I saw her crying. Every morning I saw her get up to go to work tired and defeated. But I knew that if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't have learned the full lesson. And do you think she learned it? Look for yourself. Zoe knows that she now has access to enough money to live comfortably, but she chose to keep her job. She knows she can move to a better place, but she decided to stay here with me. She knows she doesn't have to worry about the debts, but she's using her own savings to help other women in similar situations. She's helping other women. Yes, she became friends with the ladies she works with, and is using some of the money she earned cleaning offices to help a coworker who is having trouble paying for her son's daycare. Martha smiled. That's not the Zoe who went to Europe? No, it's not. This Zoe understands that money is a tool, not a goal. She understands that dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions. That night, when Zoe returned from work, she found me reading in the living room. Mom, I have to tell you something. Today, Gloria asked me if I was the daughter of that rich lady from the north side of town. What did you tell her? I said yes, that you have enough money for me not to have to work. And do you know what she asked me next? She asked me why I was still working. So I explained that it was because I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. And what did she say? She laughed and said, Honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich. Gloria is very wise. She is, and she made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but about how you use it and how you relate to it. Zoe sat down with me on the sofa. Mom, I want you to know that I've made a decision. I'm going to keep living here with you, but not as a daughter who has come back home to her parents. I want to stay here as a grown woman who chooses to share her life with her mother. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm going to pay my share of the expenses. I'm going to contribute to the upkeep of the house, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between 2 independent women who love and respect each other. Zoe, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Mom, I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. I was a daughter who took her mother's love and care for granted. Now I want to be a grown woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life. And your job? I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily cleaning offices forever. I want to go back to school. I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life. But I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study social work. These past few weeks have taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without having anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other women who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Zoe had not only learned to value what she had, but she had found a way to use her experience for something constructive. And what about Austin? If he comes back, Mr. Sullivan told me he was arrested in France for the fraudulent marriage. He's going to be deported soon. But honestly, Mom, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel any resentment. No, Austin did me a favor without even knowing it. If he hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I never would have hit rock bottom. And if I had never hit rock bottom, I never would have learned to truly value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Zoe had not only learned the lessons she needed to learn, but she had emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Brian would have been so proud. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance that neither of us could have imagined before. Zoe finished her first semester of social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use some of my resources to establish a foundation to help women in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Zoe said one morning, coming into the kitchen with an envelope in her hands. I was accepted into the master's program. I start next semester. That's wonderful news. Honey, congratulations. But Mom, I want you to know I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my new job at the city's social services department. The salary wasn't high, but she had learned to live with the essentials and to value every dollar she earned. Are you sure we can easily afford the master's program? I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Martha came to visit that afternoon, as she had done every Friday for the past few months. She had become a confidant to both of us, watching our transformation with fascination. Nicole, I have to confess something, she said, pouring herself a second cup of tea. At first, I thought you were very cruel to Zoe. And what do you think now? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Really. Look at her. It was true. The Zoe who was in the living room studying for her exams was completely different from the one who had left for Europe months ago. This Zoe had a serenity that came from within, a confidence that was based on her own achievements, not on material possessions. Did you know I saw Zoe at the grocery store yesterday buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her job? And when I asked her why she was using her own money instead of the government budget, she told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Zoe and I had dinner on the porch, something that had become a tradition. It was our time to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said, cutting her salad. From whom? From Austin. My muscles tensed. Austin, he wrote to you from where? From prison in France. Apparently, he was sentenced to 2 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, he says he regrets everything he did and wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No, not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Zoe who married him no longer exists. This Zoe has nothing to talk to him about. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting up on her own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, but it's a necessary one. Austin told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me that I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Zoe went to her room to study, I sat on the porch alone, looking at the stars, and thinking about Brian. I had promised him I would take care of our daughter, and I finally felt I had fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I had taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I had saved her by allowing her to learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday, and we had planned to visit the beach house together for the first time since I had gotten it back. Zoe hadn't wanted to go before, saying she needed time to process everything that had happened. Are you ready? I asked her as we got into the truck. I think so. The trip was silent but comfortable. When we arrived, Zoe stood for a moment in the truck, looking at the house where we had spent so many family summers. It looks exactly the same, she said finally. Some things don't change, but others do. I am not the same person who sold this house. We went in together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Brian and I had kept it for years. Zoe walked through each room, touching the furniture and looking at the family photos that hung on the walls. Mom, I want to apologize. You already apologized, honey. No, I want to apologize specifically for this house. Not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's forgiven. This house represents 40 years of family summers, of birthdays, of Christmases. Dad built that porch with his own hands. You planted that garden. I learned to swim at that beach, and I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a worthless man. She sat on the sofa where Brian used to read on Sunday mornings. Do you know what hurts me the most? That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He is here, Zoe. He has always been here. I know. And I also know that he is proud of how you handled all of this. We spent the whole day at the house, cooking together, cleaning, and fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the porch Brian had built, looking at the ocean. Mom, I have a proposal. What is it? I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are leaving situations of domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives. It was the perfect proposal. Brian would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. I think that's a beautiful idea. Honey, we can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that? Mom, the best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said that a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love. He was right. Brian had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, and neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. The transformation of the beach house into a women's shelter took several months, but it was a labor of love. We worked with architects to adapt the space while preserving its warm, homey feeling. We added bedrooms, expanded the kitchen, and created a common area where women could gather for support groups and activities. Zoe poured her heart into the project, applying everything she was learning in her social work program. She contacted local services, coordinated with police and hospitals, and created a network of support for the women who would come to stay with us. Martha became our first volunteer, offering to cook meals and teach cooking classes. Gloria joined as well, teaching practical skills and sharing her wisdom about starting over. We named it Brian's Hope House, and the day we opened the doors, I felt my husband's presence stronger than ever. The first family to arrive was a young mother with two small children. They had fled with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Seeing Zoe welcome them, showing them the rooms, explaining how everything worked. I couldn't help but marvel at the journey we had both taken. One evening, as Zoe and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a serious expression. Mom, I need to tell you something. I received another letter from Austin today. What did it say? He's being released early for good behavior. He says he wants to come back to the States, to make amends. And how do you feel about that? I'm not afraid anymore. I know exactly who he is and who I am. If he comes back, if he truly wants to make amends, I'll listen. But there's nothing he can say that will change the path I'm on now. I nodded, proud of her strength and clarity. You know what's funny? Mom, a year ago, I thought I needed a man like Austin to make me feel complete. Now I know that the only person who can make me feel complete is myself. That's a powerful lesson. One I learned from you. You lived 45 years with Dad. You loved him deeply. But when he was gone, you found the strength to stand on your own. You didn't collapse. You became stronger. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Brian in silence. We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what truly matters. And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the legacy Brian had left us. Not just the material wealth he had accumulated, but the values he had lived by, the love he had shown, and the wisdom he had imparted. Through our foundation and shelter, through Zoe's work and studies, through our renewed relationship, his legacy would continue. And perhaps that was the greatest inheritance of all. Did you like my story? Which city are you watching from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.